the Empath Sisters. Join these two healing sisters, Bev Lazar and Shelly Greenlaw, walking the path of spirituality and are here to share their experiences and guidance within the realms of energy, intuition, spirit, and beyond.
Welcome to Empath Sisters. I'm your host, Shelly Greenlaw, and joining me today is my co-host, Beverly Lazar. And we are going to be talking today about encounters with ETs.
Yes, we are. Hello, everybody. As we said on our very first episode coming back for season 5, that we were going to kind of like step out of the box a little bit of what we've been doing in the past already and just sharing some other experiences as we kind of move through our journeys as sisters. And we've had experiences in the past, and there are experiences that are happening now. So we thought, okay, well, we're just going to start to like bring these forward and share them with you. Not really sure what you're going to think of them or what. Maybe this will just be pure entertainment, which is great too. So but yes, I myself, Bev, has had a reading just really recently and was reminded of some kind of like an up leveling that I was going to go through, which I'm pretty used to these little, like these up levelings of like, wow, how can it get any better than this? How can my abilities get even stronger than this? And they always do. But however, this one, as I was telling Shelly, it was like, just the way she said it was like it was on, over Zoom. So she's just like putting up her hands and saying like, this is going to be up in your face. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, I'm used to that. And, but no, this is like altogether different. And this all literally started the next day. So which then has led conversations for Shelly and I discussing our kind of like encounters that we've had. So we thought, you know what, let's share them with you all, with our listeners. And so this is probably going to be a two-parter. Shelly and I were kind of just discussing how much information is there. And, we just probably, it might be too long being one episode. So today we're going to start off with Shelly's experience that she has had. And then we'll just kind of dive into, it going into like mine, but that might be in the next one. So you'll have to stay tuned for that one. But this is kind of like, I just wanted to set the foundation of like why, and why we're going to talk about this and share it, and how this all kind of came to be. So there we go. So Shelly, what was your experience? How many experiences have you had? And approximately when were they?
Well, I definitely know that I have had 2 for sure that I clearly remember. And
I love how you said that. Clearly remember 2, but who knows if there were ever other ones.
Well, that's just it. That's why I say like I definitely remember 2 of them.
Yeah, which is interesting you say it that way, because with the experience that I had made me really go, interesting. I wonder how many times they just do this without you knowing consciously. Right? So it's very interesting, which, will make sense once I share my part of the story. But yes, okay. So 2 experiences. So when were they close together? Were they far apart?
They were far apart. Yeah.
Okay.
So
what locations were you living in? I'm curious also.
Okay. Well, the first time that I had the encounter was it was actually after my heart surgery. In 2004.
The first one?
Yep, the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like I said, that I clearly remember. I kind of remember there were other encounters, I think, before, but I don't really it's hard to explain, but I kind of remember like maybe bits, you know what I mean? Like bits of it. But like the vivid, clear memory was the first one was, yeah, in
Clear
2000.
experience.
Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was 2004 after your
Yeah.
first surgery, which wouldn't surprise me. I feel like when people go through things, human wise, I feel like this is also why
Check.
people have these encounters, because they're kind of checking you out, like
Yeah.
understanding or studying, curious about something that we have done here on the human body,
Right.
within this world. So, and where were you living? What location were you?
We were in Redwater at the time. So we were living in Redwater. Yeah, in Alberta still. And I had my open heart surgery. I had the repair done on my valve. And I remember it was probably about like, I'm a little foggy on like, I remember it being after I had it done. I just don't remember if it was like right away, like, a week or two after.
Right.
I do know that it was definitely after. I just don't remember if it was like weeks or maybe a couple months, but I do remember it happening.
But around that time frame.
Yes.
Of after post surgery.
Yes. Post. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Post. And so
so were you thinking about them? Had you ever, like, were you watching shows about them? Had you talked about them? Do you recall any of that would just
nope,
maybe start something? Okay, just curious, just in case somebody else is thinking that as well. So
right. No, never. I mean,
didn't even cross your mind, really.
No, and I mean, like, as well as you and I both know, like, yes, we've encountered, spirits and all that stuff. And sorry, I got to clear my throat. It's about time for me to talk, I guess. So, anyway, and like we have encounters and stuff like that, and we think about spirits and all that. But to be honest, I never really believed in aliens. I never thought that there was anything like
just beyond spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like I honestly didn't think that there was anything even beyond, like, I don't even know how to explain it, like the galaxy, whatever, right? Like I just wasn't in that. Like it wasn't in my awareness at that time. It was more just like, I knew that there were spirits and I knew there were evil or good, that's it.
Yeah.
But
and maybe like a heaven and a hell or something. That's usually
kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more limited thinking or awareness.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And so like I said, I didn't, think about it or anything like that. And I do remember it was after my surgery and I went to bed one night and I went to sleep. But as most people know, when we go to sleep, or like we're sleeping, but we're not sleeping.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
We are out of here.
Yeah. Yep. And so it was kind of like that. It was kind of like what I would call almost like an astral, but it wasn't, where I was that I know I was in that plane. Do you know what I mean? So but I knew I was
just
not
kind of like dreaming.
Yeah, for sure. And and then all of a sudden I remember being in this like it was almost like a hospital. It was like I was in a hospital like I did when I had my surgery. So, but it was different because the way this like hospital, and I'm doing air quotes, wasn't like our typical medical hospital like here, like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Where it was like you had all these like, lights and equipment and you're on this bed and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But in this moment, I was technically in a hospital, but it was a
very sterile room.
Yes. But
and
it was
very
like,
white.
No, it wasn't actually white,
right?
Which was it was
Hmm.
like, it was kind of like, I don't even know how to explain the color, because I do remember the color. It was like, it almost was like where you could see like, excuse me, excuse me, everybody. It was like almost red, like there was some red color and then there was some green color and almost brown. It was really weird. Like I was like, what? Like I remember thinking like, where am I? This
Where
is
am I?
weird. And
So do you remember anything leading up to that point, or you just remember going to bed and then boom, you're in this
no,
room?
I'm sure that like this is the part that I don't remember how I
Okay.
got there.
How you got there. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
I don't remember how I got there. I just remember, yeah, like almost sort of
You're
like in
there.
a dream state.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm there. Like I am
Right.
being, yeah. So I'm assuming that that part that I don't kind of remember is that like the transition just was like, oh, I'm
There.
just gonna take her and and like I don't really remember
Yeah.
that part, but I do remember being in this like environment. I was in this like hospital type thing
Yeah.
and those colors.
Yeah.
And I remember being on this, it was kind of like a gurney, like a hospital bed.
Yeah.
However, it was again a little bit different. It was just like this metal
Hmm.
bed. There
Yeah.
was no mattress or any like no, you know, like
Yeah.
the
Just like,
cushioning at all. It was
yeah.
literally just metal.
I'm
And
thinking of these like tables in the morgue.
yeah,
Right. This
basically.
is like the vision that I have in my mind is just this sterile metal table that has wheels
Yeah.
that can just roll around.
Yes, and that's
Or
exactly it. And I do remember like there was like a green, you know how like they have like in hospitals they have those green blanket type things like the
like a sheet, a paper
sheet,
sheet or
you know.
something.
Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
even paper, it was actually cloth. Like
Mm.
it was kind of like almost like yeah, like a sheet, but it was
Yeah.
hospital but green.
Yeah.
And I remember it being on the metal bed, and I'm on the metal bed, and I remember looking down at my feet.
Mm.
And at my feet, they had this like, it looked
Hmm.
like a, uh, this is going to be weird, but like it was like a old style computer, you know,
Mm.
like in the
80s.
80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was just this little square
Monitor.
monitor. Yeah. At my feet. And I remember looking down and going, like, almost going, what is that? You know? And
Yeah.
next thing I remember is because like I'm already like zoned in into this, going like, what is happening at this moment?
Yeah.
And and like it literally had like these weird red and green like screen things on the screen of that computer thing.
Mm.
And there were, of course, wires. And I remember the wires kind of like coming up to me. And
Yeah.
then next thing I remember is there is somebody beside me and like at my arm. And I
Yeah.
remember them going to my arm and like almost putting like an IV in. And I remember going,
Mm.
what are you doing? Like I'm asking, what are you doing? And um, this sounds weird, but like I couldn't really see their faces, but I could see their like hands and stuff. And like
Hmm.
they were talking to me. They were talking to me
Yeah.
like through not voice, but like in
Telepathically
yes, yeah,
using telepathy. Hmm.
yes. And
Yeah.
and they were just saying, oh, we're just going to do a test. That's all they said. They were like, they were just doing a test and they stuck the needle in my
I'd
arm.
be freaking out. The hell you are.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And they stuck this thing in. And I remember like when it went in, that little
Mm.
like computer thing at the bottom, like by my feet,
Yeah.
was all of a sudden at my like abdomen. And
Oh,
it was
okay.
just like a lot closer now. And
Yeah.
the thing was going off and it was just kind of doing like you would when you're having, the heartbeat.
Other tests done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
checking your vitals.
yeah, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it was doing that. And I remember going, like, I was kind of at that moment, it felt like I was more paralyzed at that time. I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I remember being a little bit scared because I was thinking, like, oh my God, I can't move. And but this thing was beeping. And then there's more people. Like, now they're all looking at my body and like checking. I remember them checking my chest because, like, my chest has a scar, and they were looking at my scar. And then all of a sudden they were like, they're talking to each other. They're not talking to me. They're literally talking to each other. And like,
so you hear them in your mind talking to each other?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. In my mind. Yeah. Cause like, they're not like talking voice, but they are. But,
yeah. And in English though.
Yeah. In English, in some weren't. And some were, some weren't. And one was like explaining to the other, like, what they observed. And, they were looking, like, I just remember, and it was like almost like that screen changed into like seeing through now my chest.
Cool.
And so then they could see like what was done
right
inside. And it was not cool at the time.
Well, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking that's cool to have a machine or a device that could do that. Like, this experience, I don't know necessarily if I'd call that, really cool. But I mean, just the device, because when we think of ETs, we think of, they're just so intelligent and so like beyond here. And so it's just 100%. Like they have these things that we don't have. And so it's just cool to hear that and just be like,
no, it definitely is now.
Like, why are you checking us out? I mean, theirs is cooler.
They're the ones,
especially back then in 2004.
Right. Yeah. And so, I remember them like literally like talking. And I remember going, hey, like, what's happening? What, like, I'm asking them questions. Like, what are they doing? What's going on? Like, who are you? What are you doing? And I remember another person, like one of them, putting their hand on my shoulder and going, it's okay. It's okay. We're just checking. And I remember thinking, checking for what? Because at that time, it's like, what are you looking for? Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then,
for sure.
Then the next thing I remember is they finished whatever they were looking at. And then honestly, I remember them leaving the room.
Yeah.
And I somehow moved into a different.
You just teleported into another room?
Yep. Or like moved into a different part of my dream. Like, it literally was just like this. Like, I was just picked up, moved here, checked there, and then back. And that was my first encounter. And I remember waking up and
you remember?
Yeah, go ahead.
And you're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That would be really weird on the conscious mind. Even when you're consciously aware while it's happening.
Oh.
But, when you come back into like reality here,
like, it was so
up, it's just a different.
It was so real. It was so real that I remember waking up and I honestly looked at my arm because I thought that I would have like a poke.
A mark there.
Yeah, a mark on my arm. And of course there wasn't anything there. But but it's
probably all just like energy.
Yeah.
Like even the IV was probably just like you might see it and have this knowing of it. But yet maybe it's just this energetic, because there's like, I've heard of like healing stories of like these like spiritual surgeries and stuff that happen where
we talked
they can
about
actually
that.
just do surgery by using, their mind and
Mm-hmm.
energy and actually not touching anybody. And so that's kind of what it makes me think of, is like, them putting this IV in
Mm-hmm.
and, being able to check your vitals and everything, but yet maybe there actually is no actual physical stuff, right? But
Yeah.
you're seeing it, you're
Yeah.
seeing the energy of this device and,
And the
the
beings.
IV
Yes,
and all and
exactly.
the beings. Do you remember when they were walking out, what if they were like tall or short?
Yeah, they were very tall. But they were
Oh,
also
okay.
wearing like it was weird because they were wearing like lab coats.
Lab
Like,
coats. And
yeah,
and that's another thing that I'm curious about is like, were they actually wearing lab coats, or is this like a hologram or an energy of them wearing it to,
projecting.
for our conscious
Yes.
mind
Yep.
to look at it going, I have an understanding of what that is because
Mm-hmm.
we have an association with lab
Doctors.
coats, or
Right. Yeah.
doctors, and
Mm-hmm.
so um yeah,
Yep.
it's interesting.
Yeah. No,
It's
definitely
just
could
super
tell.
interesting for me too, because it's like, okay, Earth is this physical plane.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yet there's all this other stuff out there. Um, yeah, it's just, I want to say it's one of those mind F's.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
the
And
hell?
like I said, it
Yeah,
was like that when I woke up because
yeah,
I remember going like what you said earlier, like what the heck was that? And I
yeah.
like it was so real. Like it was to the point where like I honestly thought, oh my God, I was, and I don't want to use it's weird, like not like I don't want to use abducted,
I know.
but I
Well,
was
because they
like,
make it just like so negative too.
yeah,
Abducted, it's so bad and
yeah,
scary, which I don't know about other people's experiences. And yes,
yeah.
maybe they were scary and whatever. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, I'm not here to say
Same.
otherwise. But yeah, maybe you didn't, the experience that you had maybe didn't feel like you were abducted in the sense
No.
of like back in 2004, anything that was in movies and things like that, they
Yeah.
definitely portrayed aliens and spacecraft and abductions to be
Yep.
very scary
Scary.
and
Mm-hmm.
fearful and negative.
Yep.
But it's interesting that the experience that you had, even not having awareness other than maybe, movies and things like that,
Yeah.
that it wasn't that you felt like you were abducted in this
Yeah.
like bad
No.
way. It was just like, this was a weird encounter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now you're making me actually remember something else.
Yeah.
Because like before I had my
Oh,
surgery,
good.
because before my
Yeah.
before my surgery, I do remember like having, like I said, I remember having probably an encounter before
Yeah.
because of like it was the same thing. Like they were almost to the point where they were like what I would typically say in a normal human experience, where like I would go to a cardiologist every year, right, to check my heart every year,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I do
Mm-hmm.
feel like it was already they've been doing that
Mm-hmm.
previously. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and so I think that's why I didn't realize that I was having this encounter where they were actually going like, hey, like what happened to this girl?
Yeah.
Like what?
Something happened now. We need to check it out. We've been monitoring her.
Yeah, 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 kind
And
of
like,
like
what would
that.
they do, right? If they had this
Mhm.
knowing previous that maybe there was something wrong with one of your heart valves,
Right.
then noticing that you had a surgery or something
Hmm.
was different, and maybe they wanted to understand how they corrected it,
Yeah.
or, what they
Or
did
just
for
what they
you.
did. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm saying, like, I do feel like, in a way, I've already had somewhat been checked before. And
Yeah.
then that encounter happened. And it was just, like I said, it was so
It's so
clear.
real. I
It
know.
was,
I think about my experience and I'm like, whoa,
I know.
it's just, it's hard to explain. I don't know if any of our listeners out there have ever had an
Yeah.
experience like this.
Mhm.
But if you have, we would love to hear about
Yeah,
it
we
or hear
would.
from you if you also had that same, I don't know, wow factor
Yeah, yeah. I
experience.
mean, yeah. And so like I don't know, like if I should like so then yeah, so then that happened. And like I said,
Yeah,
I honestly couldn't believe that it happened. And then
yeah,
fast forward, so
yeah.
to my second encounter.
That you
And that,
remember clearly
oh yeah.
in between. Yeah, okay. So what location were you at now?
So this time I was in Manitoba at the time.
Okay.
And it was actually after my
Mhm.
collapse because
Oh, so the
they,
second heart time.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
They're
that's
very
why,
curious about your heart, obviously.
hmm yeah,
Yeah,
because I had been, you know, put a device in my body, right? And so like
yeah,
that's the
yeah. You got an
pacemaker or
OCD.
defibrillator to
Yeah.
you. And yeah, I remember that one too. It was something similar,
Okay.
um, where I again was in this like
Just went to bed,
hospital.
same
Yeah,
thing.
same thing. Just went to
But
bed.
and don't remember how you got there again. Just were
This
there.
time, yeah, this time I kind of remember how I got there.
Okay.
In the beginning, I was in some kind of like it looked like a hospital,
Yeah.
but it was like uh,
Were the
it's
colors
hard.
the same as the
Be-
last time?
No, this time it was like our kind of hospitals, like
Okay.
clear, white, sterile, that type of thing. And there
Okay.
was a whole bunch of rooms. And I remember
Hmm.
being in one room, and then for some reason, I would like meet up with it. Like there was one specific doctor. Um, and like
Yeah.
he was in a lab coat and everything, and he was the one that was like kind of like moving me from room to room, but every time I moved room to room, it
Hmm.
was like I was going through a tunnel. It was weird, and
Hmm.
it would be like I just go whoosh, right, and I would be into uh another room or whatever tunnel you want to call it, and then I would be in that room,
Yeah.
and then it
Hmm.
switched into like same kind of thing. I was in this hospital bed, like on this hospital bed, same thing. There's this monitor on me, and same thing.
Yeah.
They're up at my arm, and they're like
Poking you again.
poking me again, like almost giving me this time a little
Okay.
bit different. It was like I don't know if anybody's had this happen to you or not, but like it was almost like an angiogram type. So an angiogram
Mm-hmm.
is where they stick a big um, kind of like, well, they obviously use an IV, but they stick a like a little, it's like a camera type thing, and it goes up your
Mm-hmm.
arm like into your main artery and then into
Right.
where your heart is. So like they inject dye basically and check your
Yeah. So you're able to check it
your
out.
yeah. And that's kind of what it was like that time. So it was
Hmm.
a little bit because I think I don't really remember what happened the first time, like when they injected me, right?
Yeah.
And so
Right.
then this time it was like almost like they were telling me like it's like an angiogram, right? Because I've
Mm,
had them.
right.
And so they did that, and then it was like the same kind of thing, but this time they were checking like my uh device
Like the
that
device, how it's like
yeah,
hooked up to your
mm-hmm,
heart. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like the metal, like I remember them even looking at the metal, which was weird. This is going to sound maybe a little gross and you might get a little nauseous, Beth, but it was
Great.
but like I remember it was so weird that it looked like they had cut where they had cut me, like
Mm,
like human
where you got your
doctors.
first
Yeah, when I got
incision to
my
put the
first
device in.
incision, yes.
Okay.
So it was almost like they cut me there too and flipped the skin down.
Oh God.
I know.
I'd been like, I'm out.
I know. And so I just remember looking down, like I
Yeah.
remember looking down at it, and like I remember seeing like the skin being flipped down and all this,
Jeez.
like, yeah, I know it's going to be, sorry for the visuals, people, but it was like really bloody and gross,
Yeah.
obviously. And I
Yeah.
looked down and I remember them like looking at it, like looking at the actual um, device itself. And I can
Mm.
actually see the metal of it and like how it was connected. It was kind of neat for myself, actually, to be honest.
Well, I would imagine so. I think if I were in your position, I would have been possibly would have been like, whoa, that's really cool. I mean, just consciously like
Yeah.
seeing it or just being in that. But
Yeah.
over here, not being in that experience is a little bit, you know, I get
Yeah.
fainty feeling.
Right.
I already
Yeah.
feel dizzy. I'm like, oh gosh, just keep
I know. That's why I
breathing.
was like, I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's what happened. And I remember them like checking it and then they flipped it back up. And then it was like, that was it. Like they didn't
Didn't
even
happen.
like,
But
um,
no marking again
no,
or
like
yeah, nothing.
nothing. Right.
And were they
So
tall again? Do you remember?
yeah, yeah, they were tall
Same,
again.
you
Yeah,
think the same
same.
type of
I feel that they
beings?
were the same. Yeah, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really do.
Well,
So
some
that's,
people have had encounters where
mhm.
they have been different. That's why I was curious, is
Yeah.
like tall or short or what? Because
No,
there's,
no, they seemed the same to me. Like it was almost like
did they
they
have
like,
long hands, fingers? Do you remember?
well, they had big hands. I remember them being like
But they didn't look like
almost,
human hands.
no, they definitely weren't human. Like they were human, but they were long. Like, you know what I mean? Like big,
Yeah, like long
long,
and
weird. Yeah.
lanky.
Like,
Weird.
yeah, like almost kind of like it definitely looked human, but I think they were just doing that because
Or
like
maybe they do have hands like
they
that. I
might,
don't
I don't
know.
know, but
I
I
mean, some
personally
pictures
think,
I've seen,
yeah,
they
but
have these
that's
like
like,
human, like long fingers.
yeah,
So maybe it is really like that, or maybe that's just how it's like projected in
right.
our mind again to look something that we can understand and feel possibly connected to
Yes,
in
and that's
some
what I
way.
feel that I
Yeah.
think that they did that to just so that I wouldn't probably freak out
Yeah.
or
Maybe something familiar in some
yeah,
way,
yeah,
as
yeah,
weird as that is.
right, yeah. And and yeah, so that happened again. Like I said, that happened when when I had my device first put in, and
Yeah.
they were checking, same kind of thing. But this time
Hmm.
I almost was sort of like not at the point where like the first encounter where I was like, what are you doing? This, da, 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 like that.
Right.
Where this time it was more just like, oh, it was weird, but it was almost like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, like more of an understanding this
yeah,
time, do you want to
yeah,
say, compared to
yeah,
the
kind of
first
like
time?
more like, go ahead, yeah, uh-huh, I got something new. Like, what?
Yeah, check it out. Check me out. Open it up. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, that's
yeah.
funny.
But I will say that, so like I had just had my device replaced this
Hmm.
pat like last April of
Right.
2024. And I will say that I feel like I had another small encounter because it was similar to the first one. I remember like 2 weeks after, same
Yeah.
thing. I remember looking down and like I said, I don't remember how I got there. I just remember it being in my dream. And it was more
Hmm.
of a dream state this time,
Yeah.
where I do remember the same kind of thing. It was like they opened it up, flipped it. I looked and they looked and they were just like, oh, she got another one.
Mhm. Oh, same.
Yeah.
It's the
Cause
same
like I
thing.
feel like anytime I've had a surgery, they just automatically check. And
Yeah,
so
for
I feel
sure.
like because I had a surgery again and they were probably like, oh, it's the same, like same spot, same whatever, right?
Yeah,
And
everything was the same. Maybe they didn't understand why.
yeah,
Why would you have another surgery when it looks the same? Nothing really
right.
changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Unless
those
they get some
are,
other kind of awareness of like, oh, the battery is like 100% now.
yeah,
Like
maybe.
it's charged, this one.
Yeah.
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 I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I don't know
Who
either.
knows?
Yeah.
But
I just remember
yeah.
it was very quick though. Like it was just super, like short. I remember it being like that. But yeah, those are my encounters that I've had. It's just always been related to my heart and checking it out and figuring out what is going on in there, I guess. And yeah.
Well, when we dive into our second episode of this one, I just want to pre-plant the seed in case you remember something.
Yeah.
And if you don't, maybe it'll come by the next time that we do another episode. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But I feel like I remember when you lived in Lethbridge, you had an experience as well.
I had one in Lethbridge.
You sure did. I remember it. But I'm not going to talk about it right now. So I'll talk about it with you after, just to like maybe
see
it'll
if I remember.
Like, exactly, recall. And
oh gosh.
But also that I've thought about some of these experiences that I've had because we do hypnosis. I'm just like, might be really cool to like regress back to get more of the experience because there's other experiences that I have had where I'm like, I really, really want to go back and remember everything of the experience. Because for me, I was thinking about, which I haven't shared this with anybody on our podcast, but maybe just a couple of people that I know. But when I went to a trance night and trancing, when it was like a stage and this girl, I mean, it wasn't a big stage, but this lady steps out of her body and the spirit comes into her body and her face changes and she communicates. And this is what has happened to me as well. However, the certain people that were coming through and then pulling me specifically out of the crowd and speaking to me directly and telling me about the work that I was doing and going to be doing. And, I so would love to go back to that whole experience and remember the entire conversation of what was said to me. I'm like, I need to do this. Like, this is what I want to do. So it just made me think of like, these experiences that maybe you had if you wanted to regress and,
for sure,
maybe you would be able to get more of the experience than what just you consciously remember at this time.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway,
totally. That would be so cool. I think
it would be super fun.
I think it would be fun and we could record it.
Yeah, totally. I'd be like, oh my gosh. I just think it would be really cool. So just wanted to kind of like plant that seed and, see how you maybe felt about that. And,
I'm up for whatever.
Yeah. I am sometimes. It just depends on what it is. I'm not really a risk taker, so I have to like really think about it and mull it over before I really make a decision. But
I mean, I agree with you. It would depending on what the risk is, what it is.
I mean, there's really no big risk there, so that's why I'm like, I think I could do it. I think because I'm more curious.
Yes.
Of like, oh my God, I forgot we have a tool that we can use to remember something, right?
Yes. Yes.
Most times we're not really regressing people to go back to certain episodes or events and making them go through it. We're just helping them to heal and remove what it is that they experience. So, but for me, I was like, well, I want to do this because I feel like that came into my awareness because I feel like there's information. I just feel like there's something I need to remember. And I feel like as you go on a journey for specific reasons, I feel like this is all part of the plan too, where it's like, I got to this place where it's like, okay, now this is like the next step of something you need to do. Anyway. So and I'll definitely try to re-jog your memory. Obviously I don't want to like plant anything in your mind.
No, of course not.
But just share with you what I remember you sharing with me and then you can just take that and see what happens by the time we
for sure,
come back and maybe there'll be something that you will get to share in
Yeah.
addition to these two encounters that you've
which
already
is
had.
funny because right now that's where I'm at. I'm on location in Lethbridge right now. So you probably can see that I'm in a hotel room right now. But yeah, that is too funny because
awesome.
to be honest, at this moment, I don't remember. But I would imagine that it was probably pretty
It's gonna happen tonight.
Yeah, watch. They'll be like, don't you remember?
Watch
now?
what's gonna happen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like what you're putting out there is like a beacon. As I always say, you have this biggest friggin' antenna on the top of your head.
100%.
This is how we like project and receive. And anyway, so yeah, that's really cool. I'd love to, you know, dissect that. And I might come back to asking you a couple more questions about that. Of your encounters and sharing it along with my experiences in the next one. So yeah, that's amazing.
Can't wait.
Well, thanks for sharing. I don't know what anyone else out there thinks about that, but take what you like, take what you want. And again, it could have just been entertainment. But again, this is an experience that you had. I can see questions coming up of, you know, are you sure that was an experience? How do you know the difference of that experience to a dream experience, such and such? So, sometimes that's hard to explain, but I'm sure what I want to say is that for the majority of you out there, if you do dream, even if you haven't had an encounter like that, I'm sure that you have had different kinds of experiences when you are sleeping. That you remember, you know, and that it's not always just this type of dream. They are always different. They always change. And so those also can be certain encounters that you're having, but maybe not necessarily just with an alien or ET encounter. Because I've had spirit encounters, I've had ET encounter, I've had, you know, like other being encounters, and then just all kinds of experiences on all different levels. So that's kind of how you know the difference. So it's not, I definitely, in those experiences, you actually have such a knowing at that time. Like you are so aware. So it's not that I think I made this up. I'm not really sure. These experiences are so clear. You know, it happened. It's so real compared to anything else that you've experienced. That's how it has been for me.
Me too.
Is that it was like, this is undeniable.
Like I said earlier, you just, when you wake up in the conscious, you're already going, oh my God, what was that? So like,
it's way different.
You just know, like Bev said, you just know the difference. Because it's almost like you, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you were there, you know, like,
it's more real than anything I want to say that I've experienced in this real world.
Yes.
And I don't know how that makes sense. But because if you haven't had that experience, this is all you know, and this is the reality and what's real to you. But if you've ever had an experience when you're not awake and in this world doing something, because that's the reality, but you know, you went to bed and you're sleeping, and then you have this encounter, which is way more real than anything you've experienced when you are awake. That's the best way that I can put it out there. So.
Yes. I mean, that's the only way I think you can.
Yeah. And then when you do wake up, that's where it's like the mind F, because it's just the conscious mind comes back and is like, I don't understand that experience. It's real, or it's more real than what it understands of this place.
Well, and like we've talked about this so many times, it's that logic brain, you know, that comes in, and it's like the logic brain, even when you think like, oh, in our case, we do see them. So I don't know how to explain that either, but it's just almost like you can't believe it because your logic mind can't believe it. You know, it just cannot fathom of that being real.
Yeah. No.
So
it's a little weird. So
it can be.
So how this all like sinks in as you listen to it.
Mhm.
Not really sure, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of separate some of the experiences of maybe what you heard is something that sounds familiar to you. Maybe it's jogging your memory of an experience you had, but honestly, those experiences you don't really forget. You might forget pieces,
Yes. Yeah.
but it's just so real. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. And
Of
I just want to
course.
thank everybody for joining us today.
Mhm.
And we are sending you lots of love, light, and gratitude wherever this may find you. And until next time, everyone, take care.
Bye, everyone.